to the May 10th, 2021 meeting of the Roseville Independent Redistricting Commission. I'm calling the meeting to order at 6 p.m. Public comment is on the agenda. Public comment is for items not on the agenda. If you'd like to make a comment on an item not appearing on the agenda, you may call in at 916-774-5353. We'll wait just a few moments to see if there's any general public comment. Hearing none, I'll turn it over to Joe Mandel from the City Attorney's Office.
Did we want to have everybody introduce themselves first?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Let's have you introduce yourselves so the people at home can know who you are. We'll start with you, Holly.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Holly Cuthbertson. Happy to be here. Super excited. Thank you.
Kevin Wagner. I love Roseville. Love living down here.
Brian Ludwig, and yes, I too am happy to be here. Thank you.
Mary Griffith. I've lived in Roseville since I was about 8.
Karen McPhail, and I've lived in Roseville with the exception of a few years in between since 1988.
Good evening, Ryan O'Keefe, and happy to be here. Nice to meet you all.
Good evening. My name is Jefferson Willoughby. I'm also happy to be here.
Hello, I'm Renee Borowiak, and I'm also happy to be here.
Excellent.
Great. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joe Mandel from the City Attorney's Office, and I kind of just wanted to go and do a little bit of housekeeping and some background. Since last week, we did the initial 8 random commissioners being selected, and so I kind of wanted to just go back through some of the background for you. And so for everybody watching at home, going back, the Independent Redistricting Commission was something that was added by Measure R that was approved by the voters at the general election on November 3rd of 2020. And so what this did was this added Article 11 to our Roseville City Charter. And the City Charter is really like our most important legal document in the city. It's our constitution. It explains organization, powers, function of our government. So if anybody wants to do further research, or at home if you're watching this, if you go to our city website at roseville.ca.us, there's a tab at the top for government, and it'll do a drop down to the municipal code. And if you click on that, you'll be able to get to the Roseville City Charter, and we're talking about Article 11. That's what was sort of included, and now we are establishing an independent redistricting commission. So the purpose of the Independent Redistricting Commission that Sonia went over last meeting is that we're establishing a redistricting process that's open and transparent, that allows public comment on the drawing of city council boundaries, establishes that the district boundaries are drawn in accordance with applicable state and federal laws, and that the redistricting process is conducted with integrity, fairness, and without political and personal considerations. The commission is going to consist of 11 total commissioners with 5 alternates. And what we did at our last meeting on April 19th was we selected the initial 8 commissioners randomly, and so we split everybody up into quadrants according to this map and selected 2 from each quadrant to create the 8-member commission that are you guys up here right now. And so what we're going to do tonight is we are going to be selecting the remaining 3 members, which are at-large members, and the remaining 5 alternates. And when I say they're all the remaining 3 commissioners are at-large, and the remaining alternates are at-large. That is, they can be from the same quadrant, they can be from the same neighborhood, same street. You're not necessarily representing a district, so I don't want that to be a factor in any way in your selection. So tonight we're going to give the applicants an opportunity to speak about their general qualifications, and you will all be given an opportunity to vote for them with a ballot. But what I want to be able to get out is sort of on the record that you're making your selection tonight on, and this is in section 11.07 of Article 11 of our city charter. Subsection E talks about the commissioners shall make each selection on the basis of the applicant's relevant analytical skills, ability to comprehend and apply the applicable state and federal legal requirements, familiarity with the city's neighborhoods and communities, familiarity with the city's demographics and geography, the ability to be impartial, and the apparent ability to work cooperatively with other commissioners. So that's what we're here to do tonight. You have all of the applications from the other applicants for the commission. You have the applications of the other commissioners, so you've been able to see and compare, strengths and where, we can have some other people on the commission. And that's what we're here to do tonight is fill up the rest of this commission.
Prior to you doing the election, we're going to give members of the public or applicants to be able to call in and state their qualifications. And we do have members of the audience that would like to stand up and talk about their qualifications and why they'd like to be appointed. So at this time, I would call 916-774-5353 if you're an applicant that would like to address the commission. So we'll give it a few minutes because it is tape delayed by about 30 seconds. Hearing none, I would invite members of the public or applicants to come up to the podium and address the commission if they'd like.
Any particular order?
Doesn't matter.
And speaking through this can be difficult. Good evening, commissioners, and congratulations on your appointment. My name is Christine Donor. I've worked in Roseville since 2010. I've lived in Roseville since 2015. I've had the privilege of serving on several commissions since living as a resident in Roseville. Most recently, I served on the Charter Review Commission, in which one of the things we were tasked with was coming up with a consensus of guidelines that we would present to City Council to actually form and the guidelines of this particular commission. Like most of you have expressed already, I'm a fan of Roseville. I work here. I chose to live here. I believe in it. And I'm always humbled by the output, the outreach of our community to serve, to give hands and feet to keeping our community, the integrity of our community while enabling us to grow into the future. So one of the things I would say is that I do have a heart for community involvement, building bridges, and I feel like this particular commission and the task that you're given with this commission is going to affect the residents for a long time. And anyway, I would just say thank you. And I would ask you to consider me as a commissioner.
Good evening. How's everyone doing? My name is Julia Sweeney, and I'll start by saying congratulations on being selected at the last meeting. I hope to join all of you in the next one because I would love to be on the Independent Redistricting Commission. And part of why I really want to be on this commission and be of service to our city of Roseville is because I know how important that this redistricting process is. When we think about the importance of these maps and how they're drawn and the impact that they'll have on our democratic process, that's something that gets me really passionate, making sure that people are being heard from all parts of our communities and not just the ones that are the most vocal or the most organized. I participated in the districting process during public comment, and, I really came to it as a neighborhood member in a neighborhood that I felt wasn't being listened to intentionally. because our neighborhood was that little tiny pink sliver across the middle of the map that I'm sure all of you are familiar with. And, I started to think about what are the implications of dividing areas of our city or dividing specific communities. Well, the implications are that that community or that neighborhood or that area doesn't have as much power at the ballot box, doesn't have as much accountability mechanism to bring about change. And so, I tried to understand, well, what does this council member want to see happen? What does this one want to see happen? Let's start to understand what everybody wants and prioritizes and try to come up with a consensus that best serves. It turns out that our neighborhood association and our neighborhood area was split up because we weren't an active neighborhood association. And I will say that since then, our neighborhood is activated, which is exciting, and huge shout out to my great neighbor, Sonia McFall, for leading the charge. But our community, we reactivated a little too late. And so, when that map was drawn, we weren't a consolidated community to bring forth our thoughts. And so that's something that when I think about why I want to be on the commission, it's that we can't just respond to the really organized and really energized groups in our community. We have to think about those that aren't able to come to the meetings, aren't able to contact us, and think about how are these policies going to impact them. And to speak to some of my qualifications, my background is I'm an educator. And so being in a classroom, you can't just ask a question and expect that everyone's going to tell you what they need. You have to be proactive. You have to think about each individual child, each family, and what they need. So I think that brings my qualifications. I'm a political science major, so I'm familiar with analyzing and understanding policy. I work in education technology and have for the last 7.5 years, specifically in data analysis and how we make good decisions in our schools and districts. And I've worked as a committee member in the Mental Health Services Oversight and Accountability Commission for the Client and Family Leadership Committee. So I have experience advocating for communities. I'm really passionate about this, and I would love to work with all of you to make this process a really positive one for our wonderful city. So I hope to join all of you. I'm happy to answer questions if we do that later in this process, but thank you all so much. Thanks.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Paul Frank, and I've been in the Roseville community for about 23 years. In 2004, I ran for City Council in Roseville, so I'm very familiar in what it's like to walk all the different neighborhoods in an at-large election. I also served as president of Arcona, the Roseville Coalition of Neighborhood Associations, and on many different commissions here in Roseville over the years, including the Charter Review Commission, which established the Redistricting Commission. We own a small business here in Roseville, and so I get the opportunity to talk to many Roseville residents on a daily basis when they come into our shop. And also, I submitted one of the maps during the first round, or the original round of drawing the districts. I submitted a map which met all of the legal requirements as well as the requirements that the City Council laid out. And it also had unanimous support of the folks that came and spoke on behalf of the different maps during that time frame. A different map was chosen, but the process of drawing the maps was it was fun. I'm a political junkie, and I really enjoy that process. I am very familiar as a political science professor with the legal guidelines that govern redistricting, and I look forward to apply some of my expertise to that process. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Commissioners. Congratulations. I'm happy to be here as well. My name's Andrew Waldrop. I've been a resident of Roseville since May 12th, 2000, so 21 years. almost exactly. In the 21 years, I've worked in various positions in the private sector. I was most recently a claims adjuster, claims examiner for a commercial carrier, where I would handle negotiations, do investigations, settlements, analysis, evaluation of liability. So there was a lot of procedural things. I'm a graduate of San Francisco State Business School with a major in general management. So I've been in management positions for the early part of my career. I'm most recently retired, and so now I'm working for free. I've done work for the U.S. Census, which is this most recent one. I'm currently working with the grand jury, Placer County Grand Jury, which my term ends on June 30th. So I'm hoping that I can be a part of this organization. I'm also a member of the Historical Society for Roseville. And so I want to be a part of the history making of this organization. So I hope you'll consider me. Again, I'll be available for questions, answers, anything you need to ask. Thank you.
Sheila, would you like to speak? Okay, all right. So are there any questions of the commission for the individuals who spoke this evening? Hearing none.
Do we want to do public comment for an overall in case anybody
I guess
speaks?
we will go ahead and open it up again for public comment. The phone number to call in is 916-774-5353. Okay, hearing none. Before you, you have a ballot that's green in color. What I'd ask that you do is select 3 members for appointment at large. Again, as Joe said, they don't have to be in a particular quadrant. Whoever best meets the qualifications and who you think would make a great member to join all of you. So on this green ballot, please select 3 individuals. None voting it, if you pass it this way towards Holly, and then we'll collect them and we'll do a tabulation. Somebody voted. How's that sound?
Close them.
Come around a little bit. The first ballot is Werner Kuhn, Julia Sweeney, and Andrew Waldrop. Clifford Hagenjos, Charles Krafka, and John Slaughter. Lori Benitez, Charles Krafka, Werner Kuhn, Christine Donor, John Slaughter, Andrew Waldrop, Paul Frank, Julia Sweeney, Andrew Waldrop, Christine Donor, Werner Kuhn, and Julia Sweeney. Christy Borchin, Paul Frank, John Slaughter, Paul Frank, Julia Sweeney, and Andrew Waldrop. I'd like to make a point of clarification to the city attorney. We need a majority vote of 5 votes, correct? Or is it the highest number of votes?
Highest number of votes is what we're going to do.
And we have a tie, three-way tie.
Okay. The 3-way tie is between who?
Next time, Kuhn, Joyce, Frank, John Slaughter.
Okay, so we have a tie between Warner Kuhn, who?
John Slaughter
John Slaughter.
and Paul Frank.
Okay, so let me mark these.
Paul Frank, Warner Kuhn, John Slaughter.
Paul Frank, Warner Kuhn, and John Slaughter. Paul Frank, Warner Kuhn, and John Slaughter. I'm marking this so you will be able to vote for one member between the 3 that are check marked. If you want to start passing these ones that are already checked down, Holly.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we're
Looks like 4.
Here are the last 3 ballots. So you're voting for one member out of the 3 that are check marked.
And then to do the wrong.
Thank you. Paul Frank. Paul Frank. Warner Kuhn. Paul Frank. John Slaughter. John Slaughter. John Slaughter. And Warner Kuhn. So we have another tie. And who is the tie between?
Paul Frank and John Slaughter.
Starting to sound like a jury now. We gotta change minds.
I'm glad I bought extra ballots.
It's classier than tearing up little slips of paper.
That works or not, just mix it up, you know? Gotta keep things interesting.
Hey, there can't be another tie. I'm all out of ballots.
Okay, here we go.
Paul Frank. Paul Frank. Paul Frank. Paul Frank. John Slaughter. John Slaughter. John Slaughter. And Paul Frank. So the action appointed Julia Sweeney, Andrew Waldrop, and Paul Frank. So if you would all stay in the audience, I'll have binders for you at the end of the meeting. So the next action is to pick the 5 alternates. Before you, you have a salmon-colored ballot. You'll need to mark the names out on the ballot of Julia Sweeney, Andrew Waldrop, and Paul Frank. And then we'd ask that you'd vote for 5 alternate members. Lori Benitez, Christine Donor, Clifford Hagenjos, Vicky Haya Ashagatani, and Werner Kuhn. Lori Benitez, Christy Borchin, Christine Donor, Clifford Hagenjos, and Charles Krafka. Lori Benitez, Christine Donor, Charles Krafka, Werner Kuhn, and John Slaughter. Lori Benitez, Christy Borchin, Christine Donor, Werner Kuhn, and John Slaughter. Christine Donor, Clifford Hagenjos, Vicky Haya Ashagatani, Charles Krafka, and Werner Kuhn. Lori Benitez, Clifford Hagenjos, Werner Kuhn, John Slaughter, and Sheila Wagoneer. Christy Borchin, Christine Donor, Vicky Haya Ashagatani, John Slaughter, and Sheila Wagoneer. Christy Borchin, Christine Donor, Charles Krafka, Werner Kuhn, and John Slaughter. They're tied?
F5 for sure, because they'll be on.
Yeah.
We have a tie, of course. So,
Close.
So,
Christie?
yeah, Christie Fortune, Clifford,
Okay.
Charles Kafka.
Okay. Fortune, Clifford, and yeah. So they're going to vote for two, is that correct? One? Okay. Start passing those down. So you'll vote from one from the check mark boxes, or the check marks.
Sticking together, aren't they? One. I think it is just one. Just one, correct? We're voting for just one.
Vote for one.
For it. Thank you.
Start writing the names so you can draw. You ready? Yeah. Clifford Hagen-Jose. I'm not saying that right, but Clifford. How's that sound? Charles Krafka. Charles Krafka. Charles Krafka. Clifford. Christy Borchin. Clifford. And Christy Borchin.
You have another tie.
Another tie.
Hagen-Jose and Kafka.
Okay, now it's between Hagen-Jose and Krafka. So I've got one last ballot.
Running out of colors, too.
Yeah. Hagen-Jose and Krafka, correct?
Probably. Yeah.
One. Are we going to have to draw for the order of seating? Okay.
Yeah, I'll mention something right after this.
Clifford Hagen-Jose. Charles Krafka. Clifford Hagenjos. Charles Krafka. Charles Krafka. Charles Krafka. Clifford Hagenjos. And Clifford Hagenjos. Another tie. So at this point, I don't have any more ballots. So I'd ask for a process in order to determine between the two.
So to me, this was the random method that we had decided that we'll, put the remaining names in the hat and pull a remaining alternate name out.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll split this paper in half.
I almost voted for the other guy.
Okay, you can see that I have both names on these pieces of paper. We'll fold them up, and we have a bag, and we'll choose a member randomly. And I have Joe pick it. Or you.
Am I picking it?
You're picking it.
All right. Charles Krafka.
So now, at this point, what we need to do is do a drawing. So we put the alternates in order in which they'd be appointed to the commission when there's a vacant seat. So it'll be 1 through 5, and we'll do that drawing randomly.
And as we're setting this up, I wanted to just reiterate that there's 11 commissioners, but there's also the 5 alternates, and the 5 alternates are able to participate fully in all the deliberations and everything. The only difference is they don't get counted toward a quorum, and they don't get to vote. But otherwise, their voice is going to be heard just as much as yours. So this is why we're doing the random method here, to determine if somebody has to drop off the commission for whatever reason, how do we determine which alternate gets on?
Shake it up, Helen's going to choose.
So of the 5 alternates that we just chose, the first alternate
John Slaughter. Very sophisticated balloting here. So slot number 2, Werner Kuhn. Slot 3 is Christine Donor. Number 4, Lori Benitez. Number 5, Charles Krafka.
So again, if there's a vacancy on the commission, for whatever reason, John Slaughter would serve first, and then down to number 5. So that was the random drawing. What I'd ask you, in your binders, you have 3 responses for an RFP that we sent out asking for a demographer. The demographer, they submitted their hard copy documents. What we may do, depending on how the commission feels, is after you've reviewed the paper documents, if you'd like to set up, we could do a Teams meeting and have them call in, and that way you could ask them questions. So after you've reviewed the paper copies, there are 3 submittals for the RFP. After you review those, if you have sufficient questions, then we'll go ahead and set that up, because we're queued to have a selection at the next meeting for the demographer, because we need to get them under contract. It'll be the commission's job to select the demographer. We'll take that before the city council, and they will approve the funding and do the contract for the demographer. But it's actually your choice, whatever demographer you choose. There's some reading materials in this. It's not mandatory that you read them, but there are some great pointers from the League of Women Voters, some do's and don'ts for redistricting. And at this point, I want to congratulate everyone who's been appointed. I look forward to working with you. Again, our next meeting will be, I believe it's June. Can't remember.
It's Monday, June 28th at 6 p.m. And that one, so up on the screen, that one's going to be where everybody takes an oath of office. We select our chair and vice chair, as well as selection of a demographer. And then at the July 26th meeting is where we'll do a Brown Act and conflict of interest overview, and then just a redistricting requirement overview. So for those of you that have never served on a City of Roseville board or commission or watched any of the meetings or anything, the Brown Act is something that governs us as an open meeting laws to make sure that we're, conducting business in front of the public and open and transparent. So I'd like to caution and, ask that each one of you not discuss anything about this commission or the commission's business, outside of these public meetings, and that includes, social media posts and things like that. We're available as staff to answer any sort of questions you may have, and so feel free to reach out to any of us. But please don't reach out to each other, and we'll talk about that more once we get to the Brown Act training.
Again, regarding the demographer, I did put a rating sheet in there for you, so you can fill that out prior to that meeting. And with that, unless the commission members have any additional questions?
Are there any gating dates that we should be contemplating now to have that review done? I see we need to select the demographer in June, and we'll, I suppose, have at least one meeting with the prospective candidates. So can we kind of reverse engineer some dates, or does it make sense to?
Well, I think what I'll do is, because we're selecting the demographer at that meeting, I'll have them queued in if you have any questions for them, so they'll know. Anything else? Lively crew tonight. Yeah. Well, thank you again for your participation. We do want to have this map done by February 1st. You'll read some facts about the deadline is actually in April for state and county and actually for cities, but because our election period in Roseville, candidates can begin fundraising on February 8th. So if we waited till the April date, candidates wouldn't know which districts they were running for. They couldn't file their paperwork with the Secretary of State. So it'd be very difficult if we waited till that April date. It'll be tight as far as our public hearings, because our public hearings require a 30-day notice. And so whenever we start selecting maps, before we can meet on those particular maps, there's a 30-day notice. So we will probably be meeting during the holidays, at least one meeting. But we need to have that map adopted by February 1st in order for our election to function the way it's supposed to. So you're going to hear a lot of data. We have the county coming here, the county CEO's office. They're going to talk about, at the next, the June 16th council meeting, they're going to talk about their timeline for redistricting. And what I hope is that the public doesn't get confused between the county and the city redistricting the timelines. But again, our date is February 1st. And if you don't have any more questions, I'll adjourn the meeting until we choose a chair and vice chair next time, and you guys can conduct the meeting. How's that sound? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.